Hi everyone, I'm Gabriel Pereira. I am your host of A Modern Animal. In this podcast, myself and my friend Dr. Mike Woodrow will be digging into all things related to the life of a modern animal. Cats, dogs, horses, and the occasional fish, we will cover it all, building on Mike's more than 35 years of experience as a veterinary surgeon in Australian country practice, suburban practice, and more recently as the owner of businesses across the pet care space. Hi everyone, welcome back. I am Gabe Pereira, your co-host of A Modern Animal. Dr. Michael Woodrow, once again we meet. How are you?
Very, very well. And I just want to say I aspire to having a silky name like Pereira. That is an audaciously good name. Very, very well. Great to be here.
If we got married, you'd have it instantly.
We could come to some arrangement. On behalf of Gabe and I, Steve, just wanted to really welcome you to the program. We're pumped that you're here. Just how's things with you today?
Oh, look, fabulous. Yeah, great to be with you both. And, going to have a good chat. And, great to be here and bring it on.
Thanks, Steve.
Fantastic. Steve, I'm going to do a little bit of, I hope, justice to your bio. You're yet another veterinarian entrepreneur. Originally from the UK, is that right?
Australian-based, Aussie.
Okay. So I've got here, you grew up in the UK in a home full of Jack Russells.
Sydney full of Jack Russells.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I didn't detect an English accent there, so that makes more sense. And you've been in veterinary practice, I think, for 20 years. Is that right?
That's right. So I cut my teeth, come out of uni, and was in mixed animal practice, and then had my own hospital as well. So found my own veterinary practice and done quite a lot of after hours. Been there and done that across the species. So there's loads of stories in those years, I can tell you right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike, you were predominantly small animals, Steve?
Yeah. So really only a couple of years of mixed, and then 18 years of dogs, cats, pocket animals, rabbits. But mostly dogs and cats are really my thing.
Amazing. And Mike, they sent you out to the farm instead.
Yes, and Steve, just when you mention those words after hours, I've been out of active private practice for a couple of years, but I'm still enjoying that feeling. Just when you're feeling really pretty wasted, middle of the evening, and you're not worrying about either pages or phones buzzing. It's a nice thing to be on the other side of.
Me too. So a couple of years out, and I think we could absolutely. It's a thing.
It is a thing.
And yet, Gabe, I mean, as usual, there's pleasure in the pain. When, as Steve started to say, thinking back on those stories, surely veterinary practice it's just a blessed life. It's demanding, but my word, rewarding. And how often those two things go hand in hand. Steve,
do you guys miss that direct animal interaction?
I still get it. I still visit hospitals, and so I still get it without the responsibility. So that's actually kind of cool. But I agree, Mike. I think in terms of when I look back, I think the veterinarians are really privileged in terms of the part of the family. We get to know the family so well. That and truly making a difference. Like there's some roles, some jobs, some careers where you're not really truly making a difference. Whereas the vets and the veterinary hospital teams, day by day, making a difference. And I say that to them.
Yeah, and you're right at the pointy edge, which means like things can go wrong, and there can be a big cost, and things can go remarkably right, and that's huge. Yeah. So
Steve, you've made the transition from veterinary practice, as has Mike, into the corporate world and more specifically the world of insurance. Help me understand how that transition happened. I'm sure there's a story there.
There is. So I sort of felt in terms of veterinary practice, as I said, did after hours and not being able to refer a lot because I was in regional Australia, did everything, and I sort of got to a point in my career I'm like, I've sort of been here and done it. There wasn't a lot of new things that I was doing, and I like to learn. So I actually then did a Masters of Information Technology. So just random. That led me down the path of data. but I couldn't get away from pets. I just couldn't. Like, I just kept coming back, and it's like, where does that lead me? And really, instead of just doing one by one, saving pets' lives and making a difference, I now want to do 1,000 by 1,000. And so I still get that joy and sense of reward by helping pets on a really grand scale, and that's sort of what drives me now. So it's so related, remarkably so. You'd think that I just sit in an office and don't, and it's just numbers and
crunching
things.
The numbers,
but it's not. On our office wall we've got a row of all of the pets we're helping, photos. Stick them on the wall. We're
Awesome.
talking to hospitals on a daily basis, and so it's cool. Yeah, really cool.
So I'll share a story. I think, Mike, I've shared the story with you before about my dog who's actually just next to us, Willow. So Willow, Hungarian Vizsla, sport rotten, baby of the family, usual story for I think a lot of pet parents. New Year's Eve, 2 years ago, not sure. Went around to pick up the kids. She must have picked up a crayon or a corn cob or something, swallowed it. The rest of New Year's Eve, diarrhea, vomiting, and then just wouldn't touch her food. And I thought, oh shit, there's something wrong here. Took her up to SASH, of course, and they said, look, there's something there. We're going to need to do a number of different bits and pieces. Thankfully, she eventually passed it. But by the time I got done with SASH and the vet and the x-rays and the scans, it was north of $6,000 on New Year's Eve.
Yep.
Suffice it to say, the next morning I picked up the phone, or I think the day after perhaps, and got on and tried to Google pet insurance.
Yeah.
Is that how people come to your business?
Look, it's a common scenario. Like, people don't really understand the cost of quality veterinary care until they experience it. So people either go, oh dear, this has happened, what do I do? Or the other sort of probably more common one is where people go, my pet that's just passed, or my previous pet, it was an expense, and now I realise that that's still the level of care I want to give. So the new puppy, they'll come and join us that way. And so it's sort of points to the fact that a lot of people don't understand, or it's very hard to understand what the cost of care is. But not only from a point of how much is a vet going to charge for a CT, how much is a vet going to charge for a surgery on a Sunday night, but it's also what level of care and how often that care is needed throughout the pet's life. Like, that's what's really hard. Like, being able to budget for those sort of things is near on impossible.
So do you find that some people do? Because there's this argument. You hear from older folks, self-insure, just save $50 a month, whatever it is, put it in the bank, and then when trouble strikes, you've got a nest egg, off you go, sort of thing. Is there any truth to that, or is that now not with the cost of care? Is it no longer possible?
Well, you could do that, and look, ultimately, a number of things have to go right for that to work.
Yep.
So first of all, you need to be able to put the money aside. Second of all, you need to not touch it.
Yep.
So a lot of times you've got, I've got $1,000 there. Oh, damn, the car's broken down.
Yep.
We want to go on a holiday. So it has to be really set aside.
Yep.
But then think about it this way. Like, if you've got a puppy and you're putting aside $50 a month or $100 a month, whatever that fee is, after 6 months, you've got, say, $500. Well, what happens if it needs knee surgery? That's $5,000. Well, that $500 isn't going to cover it.
No.
So the pet has to be sick at the end of when you've gathered all of that money together for this to work.
And how on earth can you prepare for that?
And not only that, but the further thing on that is that, okay, we know the average cost of a care of a pet, right? So a certain breed, we know that's going to be this over its lifetime. So you go, okay, that's what I'm budgeting for. But the reality is it just doesn't work that way. What if they're unlucky?
Yeah.
So that's the average.
The atypical example of hit by a bus, right?
Yeah. But what if it gets hit by 3 buses?
Yeah.
and what we know is that averages are either averages, of everything that's similar, or it's averages of peaks and troughs. And in life and in pet life, there can be some pretty high peaks.
Yeah.
Steve,
we have an example of a dog that's been insured for 6 months, and so far we've paid out $33,000 worth of claims.
Right.
Holy cow.
And it was unlucky because it had a liver problem when it was born, born with a liver problem.
That no one knew about, congenitally.
Didn't know about, didn't know. but it also ate a foreign body. It also ate something.
Right.
You know,
so there's two buses.
There's two buses, yeah. And ultimately, you know, those things are treatable. So that's what's nice about that. But yeah, so that's where it becomes hard for the pet owner. Like, how do you budget for that? How do you expense that? So that's where the bank example just falls over. Some of the consumer advocate groups will actually advocate for that. They go, oh no, pet insurance is not worth it. But that's where that falls down.
I think something else, and Steve, I'd love you to comment on this, is that we're actually living in a time in history which is very, very fluid. You know, that there is this intersection of a number of confounding factors which are putting pets and pet owners at risk. And so you've got simultaneously a significant increase in the value of pets. You know, they've suddenly got very expensive.
Increase in ownership.
You've got the maturing and of the level of veterinary care that's available. So almost anything that's in the human space, probably over the last 10 years 10 or 15 years has migrated into the veterinary space. And also, you know, like a change in the relationship that we have with pets and our expectations of care. So all of these things are happening kind of almost within one generation. And I'm imagining that things will actually settle down in the future to where we have a different and more mature mindset around what are both the privileges and responsibilities of pet ownership. And, you know, but at present we're sort of going through, you know, the Renaissance or, you know, something, you know, there's Steve, any comments on that?
Look, I think that's absolutely spot on. Like, you look at the role of pets in the family, over the last, I mean, it's happened over the last 20 years, but even particularly over the last 10, you know, in terms of, you know, my dog is on my bed, you know, and, you know, I just happen to be a pet lover, but that's common, you know, people that, absolutely, that's one thing. And I think the veterinary industry is changing. And just like you said, like the availability of technology and the availability of and types of care and intensive care, like there's now intensive care units in the cities. You know, the pet can be appropriately monitored and treatment all the way through the night, 24 hours a day. And so it's all there, you know, MRI scans, you know, all these things that along with, and I think there's a change in the veterinary industry as well. Like, there is a shortage of vets. And so along with the shortage of vets becomes a different type of care. There's an increased rate of referral for the trickier things, which means increased cost. There's going to be pressure on wages within the veterinary industry. We're likely to see changes in the cost of veterinary care for that as well. And that's not a bad thing. Like, that just has to happen. Like, there's just supply and demand, but that will flow on. And so I think the relationship with vets and pets and the owners, their clients, is just naturally going to change.
That's an interesting parallel, isn't it? That's an interesting parallel, I think, with human medical care, right? So I started my career in hospitals. You know, the medical specialists are, you know, doing hundreds of thousands of dollars of procedures versus the GP doing a $50 procedure. Yeah. And I think we see this in veterinary practice as well, right?
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing. And it's not a bad thing at all. Along with, you know, puppies now worth $5,000.
Yeah,
exactly. Not that long ago that they were $400. Yeah, you know, but it's COVID.
Yeah, thank you, COVID.
Steve, I'm wondering also. So one of the variables that's operating, and I think operating in a very supportive way within this environment, because I think in the absence of insurance or some kind of like, we either need Medicare or we need insurance, and so Medicare ain't coming. So the pet insurance is actually, I think, a really supportive, positive change during this period, but it happens in different ways globally, and so, you know, most of our experience is just nationally. It's what we experience here, and it's easy to think that what we see here is, well, this is normal, you know, isn't this the way that it's done? And I'm wondering if you could give us a more global perspective about different, you know, how the rates of pet insurance.
How is it done in the States or the UK and so on?
Yeah, look, it's actually quite different across the globe. Even though pets are the same, diseases are a little bit different, but the way in which it's approached is a little bit different. So the most mature market is Europe and actually UK. So if we look at the most like market to Australia, it's the UK. in terms of how things operate. But they've got, so here in Australia, about 6 to 7% of pets are insured. In the UK, it's north of 30, it's up to, mid-high 30s in terms of that percent. And it's a much more mature market. In the US, 2% at most.
Wow,
and so
interesting.
it's a much lower maturity and understanding. In terms of the types of products and innovations and that sort of thing, look, Australia's at the forefront of that. The UK, again, there's probably more a race to the bottom in terms of, and again, probably the UK guys are going to come at me for that, but there is more of a lower tier, types of products and pricing. Whereas, in Australia, there's quite a broad, right from the top, really quality stuff, covering everything and all the way down to some of the really basic. In the US, they're really quite hung up in terms of, their own health insurance. So there's a lot of issues around what that looks like, fixed fees and all of that mess. Whereas in Australia here, we don't have quite those issues. We've got the Medicare, which again is a great example of what that perception leads to. People think the cost of care should be, I mean, if you get an MRI here, as a human, $350 out of pocket or
massively subsidized,
nothing out of pocket, but it's just not the case.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that answers your question well enough, but the markets are quite different. And even in Sweden, for example, the acceptance rate or the uptake rate is north of 70%.
Wow. Okay.
Just it's a different attitude towards insurance. So it's the way in which the consumer will approach insurance. So here in the US, it's much more skeptical. In Australia, much more informed, but also still need to build the trust. In the UK, it's more of a mature market.
What are the considerations? So me 2 years ago, whenever it was, Willow's been to SASH. I paid my $6,000. Assume that I had all the time in the world. What are the considerations that I should take into account when I think about a health insurance product or a pet insurance product specifically?
Good question. I think this comes back to insurance in general. Pet insurance is general insurance, but it is a case of what suits. What are you looking for? What sort of things do you want? So what sort of pet, you have to, in a reflection of what sort of pet parent are you? If you're this pet parent that I want to sleep well at night, I want to know that if they swallow a corn cob on New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve, I'm covered and I'm just going to be able to say yes. Doctor, what would you like? What are you recommending I do? Plan A, let's do it. If that's you as a pet parent, then you're looking for those quality coverage that's going to give you.
So that's interesting. So just building on that, this is and this is no reflection on SASH. One of the first questions they asked me is, look, before we do this, this is the cost of, as you said, plan A. Plan A may not work, and if we need to go to plan B, this is the anticipated cost that you need to be thinking about for plan B. And I think they may have even asked me, do you have health insurance cover? Do you have pet insurance cover? Interesting, hey?
Yeah, and often they will, because again, it changes the conversation. That's the whole point. As a pet parent, what conversation do you want to have with a vet?
Yeah.
Do you want to have what's best for this pet, or what's best for this pet and can I afford it, or can I justify that cost? They're very different conversations, and that's what we're really about. It's changing that conversation. So
how do you guys educate? Because I'm assuming that education, as you said earlier, is a massive part of this interaction with consumers.
Yeah, look, it is, and it's a case of where you want to see that level of care. Do you want it to be peace of mind or just a financial covering? Some people are looking for a return on investment. They go, I'm going to pay $500 out and I'm going
to get massage for my dog.
I'm going to get my value and I'm going to get my value. But again, that comes back to the argument of, do you really want an unlucky pet?
Yeah.
No. Do you want to have to claim on your pet insurance? Hell no.
Yeah.
But it's there if you need to. To think back to that example I gave you before, that dog that had $33,000 worth of care, that dog, great, he's going well, but nobody would want that for their pet.
Not at all. No.
Nobody's going to be celebrating that kind of return on investment.
But it's a common question, a common misconception. I'm going to try and get a cheaper premium, or I'm going to try and get, and often that smaller amount one claim is not, it's irrelevant. It's whether that you're actually going to make that decision or not. So that's my direction, is like, what sort of conversation do you want to have with your vet? Do you want it, do you really want it to be plan A, or do you want it to be, oh, look, I think I
can only afford plan D or C or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Steve, I'm wondering about your impressions around the way the veterinary profession might be changing, or in this new environment where there's an uplift both in the range of services that they can offer, and can I say that, like, we're just human too. If we've got the chance to play with toys, we're doing a great and satisfying job. But sometimes it's just great to be able to experiment with new technologies, and so there's an uplift in the services we can offer. Plus, there's an uplift in the importance of the pet and the family.
Yep.
And let's be clear, there's a financial opportunity here as a service provider. And insurance sits right in the middle of that as an enabler. Yep. I'm wondering, what are you seeing about the maturity of our industry?
That was a very sensitive way of putting it, Dr. Woodrow.
Well, how are we going as an industry managing both our care to pets and also financial implications of the services we offer?
Yeah, look, good question. I think overall, vets as a whole are generally not driven by finances. They're driven by, I think, satisfaction in what they're doing, which is using the toys to get the answer.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there's always exceptions, but in terms of gouging or anything like that, for the most part, I think the satisfaction is around, how can I do my job better? And we know that mental health in the veterinary industry is at all-time low. And so, again, it's about changing that conversation, allowing your vet to do those things properly. In terms of the overall costs, I think it's really hard. I think that's where we haven't, when you talk about maturity of the industry, I don't think that is known yet, because more and more vets coming out of new grads coming out, they've had access to all of those toys. It's like, why can't I just do that?
Yeah.
Why not? Like, that's what I've learned. That's what I've been told.
That's what I want to use. Yeah.
I'm not just going to, splint that broken leg.
Yep.
I want to put a 3-way pin, and I want to, or plate it or something like that. And so I think that's where some of the challenges and the gaps lie. And I think that's where the challenge of, and that intersects with what pet owners want.
Yeah.
Because pet owners go, well, I want the best for my pet, or I'm expecting you to be able to do it. I don't want that cheaper option. But there's a disconnect between affording the care everybody wants to give, vet and pet owner, and the reality of what,
and the paradigm of self-payment, right? In most cases.
Yeah.
So out-of-pocket payment versus any kind of government copay or subsidy. So I think that's a big difference with human healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think I think there's still some reckoning there.
Yeah.
Are you seeing, sorry, Mike, I know you've got a question as well, but one of the things we see from an epidemiological point of view is this increase in incidence of lifestyle-related diseases, not only, the apocryphal hit by a bus, but cancers, liver disease, kidney disease, obesity, and all the associated conditions associated with that, whether it's osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis. Are you guys seeing that reflected in your modelling and your data and your claims coming through?
The trend there, I think the biggest trend is associated with breed. So it's genetics.
Interesting.
Yeah, more so than lifestyle. So the types of breeds the types of animals that become popular become then reflected. So, for example, really popular, the two types of breeds, I should say, super popular at the moment. Mike, you might be able to know that, you'll know these ones too. The brackies. So,
brachycephalic.
Yep. And the dashies.
Yeah.
They're two breeds that, they're great dogs. They're
beautiful dogs.
Fun,
You've got dashies, haven't you, Mike?
No, my dogs can both breathe, which is a great
and jump.
and jump.
Yeah, and so when you have changes that way, we see that reflected.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating area. So, Steve, you're at a barbecue. Someone's bought a new puppy. Do you start early with insurance to get your premiums down, or is that just a misnomer, or do you kind of start as they hit 4 or 5 years of age? What's the right way to do it? Or, I mean, is it all just family budget?
There's two considerations here. Yep. Number one is pre-existing conditions. Okay. So, and we probably, pre-existing condition is anything that's occurred before you start insurance. No pet insurer in Australia will cover, or no pet insurer worldwide essentially will cover.
He's going to cover something that's known. Yep.
Right. So, if you're starting a puppy, it's healthy, with us, everything's covered. Yep. Right. So, that everything's covered. You've got no worries at all. So there's one upside. The second thing is premiums are lower. Okay. Yeah. Because it's more predictable as a young pet. We're just going to have the more of the range, so we know what that is, and that's a lower premium. But the second aspect really I was going to talk about is, what do we see in age brackets? What are the risks? Okay, so younger animals, puppies, 0 to 2, we'll see them as accidents. They're misadventure things. They do stupid things. They jump off couches and pull off their parts of their joints. When we get to middle age, we'll see them do, other, surgical based, big issues. So we'll see, with the foreign bodies, but the gut explorations, that sort of thing. And then older, we'll see them with the chronic disease. So we, for example, I'm trying to think of I think it's about 90, I know this stat because I put it out the other day. It's like 93% of our claims under 3 at the moment.
90s. Okay, so it's all young dog stuff.
Yeah, young dogs. So when you think, oh, look, I'll wait until they're 5 until we're likely to see something go wrong. That's not the reality. Like, young dogs are a big
funny stuff
of things that go wrong. And also congenital problems that start to show up. So, for example, your little dogs with your kneecaps, patellar luxation, super common. There's loads of examples, and something like that might be $2,500, $3,000.
Yeah.
And so immediately think, oh, wow, do I have that in the bank? Is that something that, and then then other knees the same, 2 knees. So I think insuring young is the way to go. Lower premiums.
If you can,
If you can. Oh, look, that's where the budget, the budgetable expense comes in. For example, with us, that price is locked in at that young dog as well.
And so I think it should, certainly in terms of my health insurance, life insurance, it's going up as I get older. Is that the same way with pet insurance?
Different companies do it different ways, and that's where people need to have a look, right? So a lot of the times what will happen with insurance is you'll have an age-related cost, so an age rating, and then you'll have other ratings. So some will go up each year. So each renewal, they'll revisit and go, okay, you're now 4 years old, now 5 years old, and we'll increase premiums accordingly. Or you've had claims costs and you'll rate accordingly as well. You're a worse risk, therefore you're going to cost more. We don't do it that way. So not all insurers will do it that way. We lock in price based on when they join, and don't change with the cost of claims. But does that mean, however, does that mean that they're locked at $50 forever? No, it'll go up with the cost of CPI, the cost of veterinary care and utilisation. So as vets increase their prices, which is just natural.
You've got to pass that on somehow.
Yeah, it's passed on, but not the individual risk of the pet. So that's where, again, starting early is that peace of mind, not only for those early days, but also means you've got no pre-existing conditions.
And how does I'm asking a lot of questions. How does your statistical model work? So is it breed specific? Is it age specific? I'm guessing it's multivariate, but what are some of the variables that go into the calculation?
This will sound pretty straightforward, but it's not. Really, there's 3 main ratings that we use. And again, across the board, it's similar. But it is age, so age in which they've joined, the breed, because again, if we look at a Jack Russell versus a Frenchie, right? And sorry to the Frenchies to say this, but we know overall, and any vet, you ask any vet that question, and I do commonly, they'll go, the Jack Russell is going to cost less over the life of the pet, right? Medically, I mean. So I'm sorry to point that out. Don't come at me, Frenchie people.
Because I reckon, just speaking practically for a moment, I reckon pet parents or prospective pet parents are going to take into consideration these congenital issues, in terms of cost of ownership over time. It's like poor analogy, but it's like a beautiful antique sports car. You know what I mean? There's a high cost of entry, but also there's a high cost of maintenance as you go along. So I reckon people are going to start taking that more seriously, because it is, dogs and cats are so expensive now.
Yeah, no, and Gabe, I actually challenged that because
please.
Yeah, because I think that.
But you reckon it's all emotion?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, really?
And because I think this is an affair of the heart, so
let me be clear. That's certainly been my experience. I've seen a dog and I've gone, oh, wow, what a beautiful dog. I know I shouldn't. But
having said that, when we definitely see trends over time, and so I'm thinking, so I studied veterinary science in the 1980s. That was last century, and at that stage, the Rottweiler was a very trendy dog.
All the rage.
In surgery, we referred to them as the grotty rotties. And I mean, can I just say, I've had Rottweilers in my broader family, and they are just a beautiful companion dog.
Yeah.
But they have they've got joint problems.
Yeah.
That were particularly present at that time. Now, so breeds have come and gone in terms of their popularity, and they're going to come with each one's going to come with hang-ups, but some breeds certainly have.
So you think it's the minority of people who are spockish about determining their choice of dog?
It's not rational. It's not rational a lot of the time.
I know. You're right.
There's a pretty interesting study to show, and again, like some of I won't mention a specific breed, but some of the breeds where there's obvious concern around their traits that they're examining in the hospital. So vets are saying, this is abnormal, this breathing is abnormal, yet, or this conformation is abnormal, yet that is starts to become considered normal for that breed. And the owners are not because they go, oh, that's the breed, but they're not recognizing the abnormality. Now, sort of getting away from things a little bit, but it just shows the rationality or rather the lack of
absence thereof,
choosing family. We're going, oh, look at that. I identify, I love that type of breed. I love that type of personality in that breed. Because look, let's face it, they're dogs and they're cool and they're fun and they're loving, or they're quiet, or they fit me or whatever.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily, and you think the best, like you think they're going to be healthy. You don't think, oh, I'm going a dog and it's going to be unhealthy.
Yeah, got it.
And I think so. That's where I agree with you, Mike. I think that's where it's a bit more challenging.
So, Steve, can I ask if we were just to pursue this one step further? Because I wanted to go to 30,000 feet and say, looking at pet insurance. So I've spoken to it as an enabler of great veterinary attention and also great pet stewardship. But if we take it to the next level, is both our society and our profession able to handle the responsibilities? Imagine if insurance became widespread. Are we moving into a place where we could be moving out of what is either an ethical or moral treatment of our pets? Could we move into a space where we actually continue to support breeds which are moving towards an unhealthy conformation because we've got the infrastructure around them to support it? I mean, I'm going pretty philosophical.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying here in terms of, if we're able to treat it, should we? Or are we encouraging poor conformation because we can treat those later on?
Yeah. This is a question of philosophy and ideology as well as morality, though, because sorry, I jumped in on top of you there, but we encountered this in human medicine, right? So, and again, take this in the spirit of which it's said. So I used to run clinical services contracts for cardiac services, surgery, angioplasty, angiography for morbidly obese Pacific Islanders coming in on insurance paid procedures. But the challenge is, which is all good and well, recidivism in terms of coming back for more stents, more surgical episodes, more angiography, more angioplasty was very, very high. Do we not, though, as medical professionals or healthcare professionals, still have a duty of care to provide care for those humans? Most of us, I think, would say yes, we do. So why were they coming back, right? lifestyle issues, lack of exercise, cultural considerations, whatever it was, right? So again, I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm just making an illustrative point. Again, they were able to come back and again for care because there was an insurance, to your point, Mike, platform in place. If a pet becomes a member of the family or is a member of the family, how can we make that distinction, I guess?
Yeah. I'd say a couple of things to this. I think that
tough one though.
Once we get to that point, so in terms of the veterinary industry anyway, or in terms of pets within the veterinary industry, I think once we get to that point that you described, Mike, in terms of cost becomes less of a factor because there's insurance and the medical care is available. And I already see this within the industry anyway. Vets are very passionate about advocating for animal welfare. So animal welfare is different to people welfare. We're far more
yes.
It's like, and so I think, yes, we would still treat those pets because they're there in front of us, but also advocate and say, enough, let's stop this. Let's do better. Let's breed better, because we've also got life cycles and changes that can occur within a lifetime. We can see those, bit like the German Shepherds when I graduated. Mike, you had the body. I'd give you the German Shepherd and say, when I graduated, all of them had dodgy hips.
Yep.
We don't see those dodgy hips anymore because they're bred out. And so I think there's a way in which these breeds can either be changed, through advocacy, through the veterinary industry and through the breeder industry. But so I think I would actually say that there's such a moral standing or an ethical standing within the vet industry in particular that would counter that pretty strongly. Yeah. And I'm proud of that. I'd be proud of that.
And the voice of the veterinarian, as we said right at the top of the conversation, such an important member of the community, a member of the family, ongoing caregiver for not just one animal, maybe a series of animals as you go through life. So
I also think the industry itself will have more of a voice. I think in the last 20, 30 years, I think the veterinary industry has been pretty quiet. I don't know, Mike, if you agree with that, but I actually think as we move on to more advocacy and things, I think that will change.
Yeah, I concur. And the giant probably needs to wake up, I think.
Agree.
How does that happen? Is that at a government lobby level or just a consumer kind of advocacy education level? Sorry, off-topic conversation, I know.
I think all of the above. I think the role of the veterinarian, it will become more important as there's also more scarcity. The community will actually understand, the real importance.
I can't take these guys for granted. Yeah,
exactly. The pets themselves are becoming more valuable, and I don't mean that in a money way. I mean that into the family.
Emotional. Yep.
But as well as we look at livestock, we look at disease, we look at pandemics, we look at disease coming through, herd health, all that. I think the veterinarian role and the veterinary voice will become more important over time. But I also think with the new millennials and then generations that are a little bit more like, I'm standing up for these rights. We look at the rise of issues such as veganism. We look at all of those other things which are animal rights. I think it'll only improve. I might be getting a little bit off topic, but
no, it's good.
Yeah, that sort of. Do you agree with that, Mike?
Yeah, I am seeing a change, and one of my peers, someone I graduate and someone I highly respect, is part of a particular group called Vets Active in Climate Change, as an example. And what I've seen in that space is that vets are highly motivated. They're intelligent. They are strongly socially and sometimes politically connected, and so they can be a voice for change. I think oftentimes in the past, veterinary science has been somewhat of a cottage industry in that we tend to retreat into our neighbourhood and into our area of influence, and we tend to be pretty jolly busy. So it's often not a 9-to-5 job, and so time for space outside of that, apart from just keeping the wheels turning and the pets fed and cared for, sometimes it's tricky.
And I think that sort of leads back to that other issue is around pet insurance, like in terms of advocating for pet insurance. In terms of saying, look, this is an important part of the care I can be able to provide. Vets haven't really engaged with that a lot.
No.
And so it's just another component of them recognising, the industry recognise the importance of the cost of care as it gets more expensive, and be able welfare and their clients being able to afford it, is around saying to a puppy owner, have you considered pet insurance?
Yep.
Not have you considered this pet insurance, but just have you considered pet insurance? just like at the dentist, they say, who's your insurer?
Who's your insurer? Yeah.
Vets being able to say, who's your insurer? This is a normal part of caring for a dog or caring for a cat is, no, it's not going to be right for everyone, but at least, starting that conversation, I think is pretty important.
Steve, commercial question for a second, how do you get the word out? Like, whether it's with respect to your business or one of your competitors, what's the way that you get the message out to veterinarians as endorsers and perhaps recommenders, but also to consumers themselves? I mean, the MBFs and the Boopers, they're advertising on TV, they're on radio, they're on buses. You don't see a lot of pet insurance advertising, for example.
Just because of the size of the market, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, it is. It's a matter of online marketing, social marketing. And for us, we're really about the point of care. So a little bit different about us is that, Trupanion is about our relationship with the hospitals, our relationship with the industry itself. We understand, and that's where we want to make the difference. Rubber meets the road when you take your pet to the vet.
Got it.
So for us, it's about how do we make the claims experience seamless? How do we make it easy for the hospital so it's not an aggravation? How do we make it so that the claims experience, where they get the result back, they go, I understand that. That makes sense. As a veterinarian, I get that. It was accepted, it was denied, whatever the case may be, it makes sense. So for us, it's about our visiting the hospitals and saying to them, hey, do you want our claim software? Hey, can we make it easy for your clients? And so that's that relationship that we build, but essentially direct to consumer in terms of online. So finding us online, and be it through, other affiliates and that sort of thing. Traditional media, look, we're getting to marketing now, but traditional media is changed as well.
The cut through is awful.
So it's all about Google search. It's all about online plays, social sort of thing.
But I think, you look at the silly example, the millennials in front and center, the hours of TikTok consumed vis-a-vis the hours of mainstream TV. It's just absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Well, I'm not sure how you talk about insurance on TikTok, but maybe you can figure that one out.
We have just started our TikTok account. My dog, who's happened to be, he's actually sleeping next to me. He is starting a TikTok, so it wasn't
Very
me.
good.
But yeah, better. There you go. Yeah.
Steve, just on that topic, and I guess it's looking forward. What role do you see innovation playing either in your business or in the industry more broadly? What do you see as potential change? And I'm thinking, it could be easy to sort of think about innovation in terms of technology, but also thinking about innovation in terms of promoting wellness or data analytics or big data or something. AI.
Data is my wheelhouse. And so there's a lot of scope there. And the more and more you can use that, you can make it really tailored in terms of those risk profiles and what that means for, fair pricing and all of that. If I look at it from a consumer point of view, where do I think the innovation will be? I think we've actually seen a huge change in the last, let's say 5 years, even 3 years when it comes to the experience at the veterinary hospital. So there's now gapless payments or gap payments. So, the veterinarian can put the claim in for you and you only pay the difference.
Yep.
You only pay the gap like you would for the medical side of things. So that is a huge difference than it was 10 years ago when you'd pay the vet, then you go, you write your form and you put it in, you post
2 weeks.
There's a good number of insurers that will allow, gap only payment. And for me, that's something that just needs to, be across more of the industry to allow that. So I think that's the first innovation. The second is around a lot of AI in terms of claims processing. And so, for example, being able to do claims quickly, efficiently, cost effectively, and accurately is only stepping up. And that's something that we invest really heavily in, both of those two things I've just mentioned.
Which is, I guess, taking the human element out or lessening it in terms of claims assessment. Is that right?
It's more about speed.
More about
speed. So, for example, if you're in the veterinary hospital and you've got a dog with arthritis, that patient has been seen half a dozen times over the last year, and you've just come in to refill your script of meloxicam, of meloxicam, $100, and you go, oh, that's insured. For you to be able to put in a claim electronically, go click, 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 puts in, and literally seconds later it come back, yes, paid, and we're paying 90% of it. Right, that's a huge difference from, I'll pay the vet, go away, and then get my money back. So It's the experience. So it's using technology to make the experience better for everybody, rather than anything else. And it just means that can be done 24 hours a day too. So be it the emergency centre, be it wherever the case may be. So the innovation there is really key. I think also understanding and educating people better. So understanding the type of person that's asking the question about it, given the information they need at the time, is also another, I think, a good technology play. Using data and educating people to say, hey, you have a X breed.
Yep.
Ahead of time. So even I was talking with another technology company last week, actually, and they were using veterinary data to be able to say to their vets at appointment time, this breed is this much more likely.
These are the issues to think through. Yeah.
And so you can educate clients at the point of care. Yeah.
Because I was thinking, Steve, that, and I was thinking about that big data, I was thinking, where within our profession is there like a central point where you get this assimilation of data, which say this, this breed, this age, this condition, from rural, regional, East Coast, West Coast. Yeah, so you would have some unique access to data there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And globally too, right? So there is most definitely regional differences, global differences, disease differences, even genetics across breeds. But in saying that, there's also trends. Yeah. And I think it's both the trends as things change over time.
And the historical data. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're spoilt for that. Yeah. We're spoilt for it. And we want to use that for the betterment of everybody. And so I think, again, there is some moves within the industry to use the practice management software data. Again, anonymized, so people don't have to get worried about any of that, but it's really anonymous data to be able to say, okay, what are the common issues? What are the common breed issues? How do we work on that? And I believe some of the universities are working on that too. It's really exciting, and all for the betterment of pets. See, this is the nice thing about the vet industry. This is the nice thing about, actually pet insurers are pretty stand-up industry. I think we've had a bad rap. But certainly, in terms of what we do, it's again for the betterment of pets. That's what it's about.
We're coming up on the end of the hour, and I really want to thank you for your time and be respectful of the time we've got allotted. But would you be so kind as to do a little bit of an infomercial for your business, please?
Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't I be happy to do that? So Trupanion is really a new insurer in Australia. The really key differences for us, if we talk about the elevator pitch, it's about really truly being able to budget for the unexpected. We're the only insurance that has pet insurance that has no payout limits, no sublimits. Okay. We pay directly to the vet where we can. We've got that partnership. We're open 24 hours a day, and we pay at 90%. So we don't often say what we can cover. It's more what we can't, because really we cover all new illnesses and injuries. So when we talk about peace of mind, and when we talk about being able to budget for the unexpected, I believe we're the only ones that can really truly do it because of the no sublimits and the no limits. It's that $30,000 bill. Claim. It's that SASH bill. It's all of those things. So for us, being able to do that efficiently, and be transparent and fair about what we do and don't cover really makes Trupanion the difference. And that's why I'm proud as a vet to be head of the business here. Be able to say, hey, I can look at my when I walk into a hospital and say, this is what I represent, and they go, oh my God, this is what we've been looking for.
Thank goodness.
I don't have to have those limits or sublimits. I can refer my patient because I haven't used up all the insurance on a limit. So
love it. Mate, and to be honest, I mean, just spending time with you in the last hour or so, you really get a sense of your true feeling and sentiment towards animals. So, it's wonderful you found a vehicle with Trupanion to be able to do that, as you say, at scale for thousands of animals versus one animal at a time. It's awesome.
That's good.
Personally rewarding.
Yeah, I bet. And what kind of dog you got behind you?
He's a Mastador.
Ooh, love that.
So he's a Mastiff Cross Labrador. He is the most brilliant dog in the world. I'll fight anyone for that title.
I thought that was my dog.
The reason,
Steve, great to hear that you got the second best dog in the world.
Third best.
My best dog in the world. He's a master. I actually got him from a client of ours when I was in practice. So he was a bit. His name is Wiley Coyote. He was a bit too boisterous when he was young, and he hurt his older brother in the other family. And they said, we can't. You know, he's a great dog, but he's just too.
We don't need two of them. Yep.
All right, bring him on. He's perfect.
So just the one, or like Mike Woodrow, have you got a farm of animals with you?
I actually do have a farm. We lost our Airedale only just last year. Yeah. I don't know if you heard through the recording, I had my 19-year-old pussycat yell at me for dinner.
No.
But she was like, come on, what gives? I've got 2 ponies out in the paddock and 13 Peking ducks. And so that's it for me.
Love it. I love it. Steve, thank you so much for your time. Mike, as always, a pleasure. Really appreciate it. Very, very instructive and a really, really balanced perspective. So really appreciate your time.
It's been fun. Thank you.